Hey, good morning, Facebook world. Today we actually have a guest, Grant from Locked In. We're going to be going over some of what they're involved in and they're working on the upcoming year. I had recently watched some videos and they have a lot going on this year. So we're going to tune in and see what they're about and help them get their work out there into the world. Hi. Are you muted?
No, I'm not muted. Can you hear me?
Yes, I got you now. All right.
It's super delayed and slow right now. Can you hear me?
Yep, I got you. All right. So, tell me about Locked In first and foremost. We are having some technical difficulties, but we'll get them figured out. There we go. Yeah, I can hear you fine.
I can barely understand what you're saying. It's like a very, very intense delay and slowing.
Okay. That may be the internet here. Let me check. All right. Yeah, I think it might be my internet. All right. Is there anything different right now?
It's the same.
Okay. All right. Would you want to go over your role with Locked In? And I will try to get something figured out.
I don't know what you said. Sorry. Okay, great. I can do that. So I am on the board for Locked In. Locked In focuses on basically community education and action. Those are the three pillars that we focus on. So building communication, expanding our ability to communicate through delivery of curriculum. Education, expanding options for education for folks who are otherwise marginalized and aren't able to get access to that. And action, meaning legislative or otherwise ways that we can engage with our community so that we could expand our reach and dismantle systems of harm.
Okay.
I'm previously incarcerated. The question is, how did I get involved with this work? And I'm previously incarcerated. I was incarcerated for the majority of my life, most recently from 2005 until 2019. I had the opportunity to go to a prison called CTF, Correctional Training Facility, and there was a lot of groups
Mhm.
and a lot of things happening within the community that I had not seen in other prisons. And Locked In was established and founded in the visiting room of CTF. So getting engaged there and coming home, I now have the opportunity to do this work out here.
That is amazing. I've done a little bit of research into it, but as far as what current things are they working on?
Mm, sorry. What current things are being worked on? That's great. So we've recently established a more expansive curriculum that we hope to begin delivering this year. Deals with things like basically expanding emotional intelligence, making amends, trauma, working through trauma, and basically like helping folks realize the things that they want in life and how to achieve those things through a broader emotional and social range. We also have we've established a program where we're working. It's called that's called the Five Keys curriculum. Sorry, I'm stumbling. It's called the Five Keys curriculum. We also have the Value Within program, uh, which we're targeting folks who have parents who are previously or are incarcerated.
Mhm.
The impact that that has on someone's life is it's incredibly detrimental to the individual when their parent is taken away from them and put away. It also
Mhm.
limits their resources and impacts the way that they engage with their community. So we're offering a broader range of education to folks who have parents who are incarcerated, and also interviewing folks so that they can speak of their experience having a loved one who's incarcerated.
Okay. All right.
What things have I come to realize need more work within the justice
Mhm.
system? From my perspective, everything. I don't think that the justice system is it's a step. Let me put it this way: the justice system is doing exactly what it's intended to do, and that's keep people locked up and keep them
Mhm.
returning to prison. I think that if we were to take all of the elements of harm out of what we call prison today, everything that harms
Mhm.
the person inside, harms the community, and harms the loved ones of people who are inside, then you wouldn't have prisons at all. These would be treatment centers, they'd be
Right.
mental health treatment centers and hospitals. So the entire system as a whole is it's not functional for our needs, it's functional for the system's needs, which is
Mhm.
continual incarceration and recidivism. So specifically, like I think that a multi-pronged approach is vital here. So targeting legislation that hits marginalized communities harder than it hits those who are privileged within privileged communities, and breaking down and chipping away at the systems that are the laws that are in place that basically cement this system in place. Also, I think passing new legislation and bringing community-based organizations into prisons to work with folks that are in
Mhm.
prison so that they can come out and not return, not fall into the pitfalls that are right in front of them through parole, through the
Mhm.
40,000 obstacles that hit someone as soon as they're paroled. Um, and group work within the community to help people understand and envision something better than what we have in front of us.
Mhm.
Oh, thank you. So what can we as a public do to better support Locked In? Get involved. Follow us on social media. Check out our internet, our website at www.lockedin.info, and just see what you can do. So any level of support is welcome and necessary. It takes a community to really dismantle systems of harm and build something up in its place that's built on like communication, love, care, compassion, empathy. And this system doesn't have any of those qualities. Even if it tries to model them through reformist laws, it doesn't have those qualities. So what I would say is just get involved, find ways to get involved through us, through like-minded organizations, so that we can build a broader network of people who are fighting to dismantle systems of harm. Okay, that's so probably very much like Texas. We have very racially biased laws, laws that extract people from marginalized communities and put them into prison almost directly from school. The school to prison pipeline is a national, it's a national epidemic, and that's what we deal with in California as well. We also have a very, very pro-police stance in terms of in our larger communities where these things are happening in marginalized communities. There may be little support for the police, but the people who are casting votes and putting budget money into the policing system and into the prison system is very much pro-police and very much unwilling to look at alternatives. So we have, probably our drug penalties have recently been restricted. We have many drug charges that are misdemeanors and options for treatment on that. But there's a real bias towards violent crime and towards like sex crimes and crimes of that nature. Understandably so. People have a clear bias towards something that hurts the community, but the focus is more on shame and anger and less on healing and connectedness. And I think that as someone who committed a violent crime, I know that I'm responsible 100% for my actions, right? There's a series of events that led me to think that A, this action was okay, B, that this was the right thing to do in this instance. And if I deal with those issues, which I had the opportunity to do within the CTF community, and once I came home, even further so, if I deal with those issues, then I'm less likely, if I'm unlikely, if not less likely, to commit that crime again, right? To hurt someone again, to harm someone within my community. So taking that into consideration from the individual level, expanding more community-based programs is a solution. There's billions and billions of dollars dumping into a prison system that doesn't work. We have a prison system that says that it prevents crime, that says that it stops crime, and crime numbers continually stay the same. So it doesn't work, right? Rape still happens, violent crime still happen, drug use, homelessness, poverty still happens. These things aren't solving it. So those billions of reallocating those billions of dollars into areas where those communities could be served and these problems could be resolved and prevented is the solution. And while you're typing, I could talk a little bit more on specific laws. Okay,
Yeah,
so we have enhancement laws. I don't know if Texas has the same types of laws, but we have enhancement laws that are ridiculous. Let me give you an example. I had 5 years for the offense that I committed and 10 years in enhancements. There's people in prison that have a 3-year like foundation sentence that are doing 50, 60, 100 years on enhancements for having a weapon, for being a gang member, for having prior offenses of the same nature. Enhancement laws seem like double jeopardy to me. The Supreme Court has ruled that it is not double jeopardy, but I think chipping away at those enhancement laws that likely were sold to the public in a voting year as something different than what actually came to be, for example, the three strikes law, is another option that we could explore, is chipping away at gun enhancements, at gang enhancement, and at strike enhancements. When the numbers begin to reduce because people would be released on appeal, you utilize the money, reallocate the money from the prison system into community-based programs of care that can support people for reentry and give them the educational basis that they might need so that they could learn not to engage in behaviors that are harmful to their community. I am familiar with the Ashker case. Absolutely. And so in California, right alongside the Ashker case, when that began letting people out, there was a huge hunger strike. And it was the first peaceful resistance that people had the opportunity to participate in California. Up until that point, I think that systemically we've been educated to engage in violence because that's what we thought that we were supposed to do. This is prison. This is what people in prison do. And having the option to engage in something peaceful, even though there were sacrifices, people died in the hunger strike. People were seriously ill from not eating, but they fought for what they believed in, which was that the solitary confinement and ADSEG and SHU rules and the guidelines, the way that they were operating the SHU, which I was in at the time of the hunger strike, was inhumane. It was basically torture. And so being able to hunger strike and get out, come out onto the main lines again after I was in the SHU for about 7.5 years. And some people were in the SHU for 20, 30 years. It's much worse. 7.5 is a lot, but it's nothing in comparison to what some people served. And being able to get engaged out there and like continue the path of finding peaceful methods of resistance, finding ways to get engaged in activism as opposed to aggression, which there's a lot of aggression naturally in prison, but that doesn't mean that that's all we are. No,
Right.
we aren't defined by our worst behaviors. We can learn. We are human beings. And having that option to get involved in programs, in anger management classes, in victim awareness classes, which the prison system, I don't know if Texas is different, but in California, the prison system doesn't provide those things. They don't build out programs and put them within the population, likely because they don't really care if we have victim awareness or manage our anger. It serves their interest for us not to have those things. So we founded programs, we established programs that were challenging some of the deep-rooted issues that we were dealing with, and where we couldn't establish a program, a community-based organization would come into the prison and offer what they had developed, and that was completely different than anything I'd experienced in prison before. Having, for one, ADSEG it's inhumane, it's criminal, it's terrible to do that to people. The trauma that I deal with today from being locked in a cell for 23 hours a day, more than that, 24 really, if you count days that we don't have yard, don't have showers. The embarrassment, the shame, no visits, no contacts. It's a terrible way to treat a human being. And it's just more eye for an eye thinking that doesn't serve our interests. Oh, and I didn't answer your question. I missed that last part. So why do you think it's so hard to allow gang members programs? I think it's hard because of bias, implicit bias. We think of the media representation of a gang member, the police representation of a gang member, the politician representation of someone who's engaged in gangs. And we don't think of it as a person who, for me, for example, I started at the age of 14. This doesn't justify the fact that I got involved in gangs. What it does, I started at the age of 14 as a runaway, running away from an abusive household. And I found family in this community. The things that we were doing were things that kids do. It's not everyday crime running around toting
Right.
guns. It's not what the media represents. It's really a group of people that band together for protection. So
Mm-hmm.
if we can offer as a society protection on a more broad level, then those types of things may or may not disappear, but the harm that the community encounters as a result of gangs goes away as well. So I think it's hard because of the implicit biases that we have. When we start viewing everyone as human beings equally entitled to the treatments that we need, to the counseling, the therapy, the groups, transformational programs. If we start viewing everyone in that same vein, then
Mm-hmm.
amazing things can happen.
Mm-hmm. I could not agree more. Oh, we have a question for you. What is one of the most inspirational achievements you have seen in prison reform since you joined Locked In?
Ooh, I couldn't understand it.
Hold on one second. Hold
I'm
on
sorry.
1 second. You're good. I can get it for you.
What is one of the inspirational achievements you have seen in prison reform since you have joined Locked In? One of the most amazing things that I actually got to take part in was the legislative battle to get people who are on parole their voting rights back, which was known as Prop 17, originally ACA 6 in California. A lot of people don't realize that many states don't allow people who are on parole their voting rights once they return. They think that, and some states may not even allow them to get their voting rights ever. And I think that's an incredible injustice and marginalization. Having my voting rights back, I was able to vote this last voting round, and having the opportunity to do that was one of the greatest blessings of my life. Being able to participate in a process that I was supposed to be entitled based on being born. So the fight, it required a constitutional amendment that went through. It required a language battle at the original initiation of the bill. We got to engage in that, and then go out and hit the streets and hit the internet, and just basically let people know that this is something that people should have, that has been taken from them based on, again, implicit bias. So it passed in California overwhelmingly. I think that it was a 67% or higher. It passed overwhelmingly, and now everyone that's on parole in the state of California has the right to vote. Thank you. What advice would you give some of the men in ADSEG today to help them prepare for release? I have one who's been in 23 years and is due out in 1 year. So ADSEG is an incredibly oppressive and repressive environment. And what I would say, if I could talk directly to someone who's in ADSEG right now, is take this time to study and establish a discipline in your life. Don't sit in resentment. Speak to people every opportunity you get. If you're released to like in California, they have these things called dog runs that are cages for the yard. You don't ever really get to have contact with other people, but I would spend my time talking to people from cage to cage, yelling if I had to, just to engage in that social interaction that human beings require that they try to strip from us. Don't fall into the nonsense that the guards throw at you. They are the real enemy. They are the ones that are trying to get you deeper and deeper into that hole, whatever emotional pit that you're in. And just take the time to study the things that you love and prioritize who and what is most important to you. I spent my time in AdSeg working out, hobbying, writing letters. You don't have hobby craft materials, but I would draw, I would write poems, I'd try to write pieces for a book, anything that I could do to keep my mind occupied. And the time went relatively fast. It's not to say that trauma will not occur, but dealing with that trauma head on instead of just letting it build up and create sediment around your heart is not healthy. Another thing that I suggest is once you are released from AdSeg, seek whatever forms of treatment you need immediately. There may be a need to discuss that trauma with someone. The world moves much faster outside of AdSeg than it does within AdSeg. That's overwhelming. Dealing with that with people who have like-minded experiences is very, very helpful. And dealing with it with a therapist or counselor when you can is also very, very helpful. That's great. So we are going to reach as far and wide as we can to touch as many lives as we can. We're going to be delivering program. We hope to be working with youth within different areas in California and hopefully beyond very, very soon on our curriculum, our 5 Keys curriculum, and also the Value In program. We will continue to look for more options for programming that we could offer to people and more resources that we can help expand into other communities as well. Tell me how your past has helped you grow into activism and what caught your attention. That's an amazing question. So, I mentioned I was involved in gangs. I was basically in and out of the system from 14 until the age of 36 when I was released. And when I went to prison in 2005, I did not intend to go home. I was sentenced to a 15-year sentence. The way that my mindset was I have nothing out here. I'll go in there. I'll make a name for myself, which basically means get political, and through acts of violence or making money, and I'll just continue that way, because it was easy. Being engaged in the communities. The CTF community specifically, being able to be engaged with people and have these deep, emotional, intuitive conversations, people discussing remorse for the things that they've done, was a complete game changer. The first time I started hearing people talking about, their emotions, I was turned off because I'd never experienced it. Right? I'm not interested. I don't want to have anything to do with that. But, the more I heard it, the more I think a part of me inside knew that it was a piece of me that I was missing or that I had repressed and that pushed away, and I wanted more. So I started attending groups. I started listening. I started talking. And what stood out to me was that, because even though I was in prison and I knew that there were good people, there are people that are in prison that are good people and just made bad choices. I didn't
Mhm.
understand the scope of that statement until I started entering these rooms with 50, 60, 100, sometimes 200 people, sometimes 200 people who are just discussing things in a very, very fluid way, openly, and not just being deceptive, not falling into criminality, not doing all the things that the media and the politicians say that they're
Mhm.
doing, but just processing. Um, so many people want to go home. And so many people that don't want to go home, the potential is there to show them the benefit of being out here engaged in a life that is meaningful and committed to the people that you love, the things that you love.
Mhm.
And so the realization came very, very soon after getting involved that people in prison aren't bad, that prison is bad, and that it's a symptom of a greater issue. People in prison may be ill informed, they may have bad decision making, but with some support, some guidance, and with a community around them and behind them,
Mhm.
we wouldn't even need a prison system. And that was what got me deeply, deeply involved in
Mhm.
this, is the idea that everyone is capable of transformation.
Mhm.
People are hesitant, and I think that a lot of that has to do with seeing so many failures, legislatively or otherwise, in terms of reform. And in terms of personal reform, I think that people are hesitant because it's so much easier just to do what we know, right? It's so much easier to
Mhm.
do what we know and may not be working for us, but has worked in a short, like we've got some payoffs immediately. And what
Mhm.
I'd say is reach deeper. I think that it's very important to I think it's very important to like look within yourself and think about who and what is most important to you,
Mhm.
and then aim for that 100% all the time. I think that if an individual who is hesitant to make any big changes in their life, but still loves their moms, their dad, their siblings, their partner, whoever it
Mhm.
may be, and can commit to digging into action for that person, for those people, for the goals that they have in life, I think that hesitancy towards changing the patterns in their life will start to
Mhm.
fade, and they'll just begin to take revolutionary and transformative steps. The animals are wild today, huh?
This is nothing. Not even bad.
Oh, absolutely. We will. We'll be sure to keep you updated. Absolutely. I think, and I've said this to other people before, I think that like just like the more broad community, like the more broad community acknowledgement that people in prison are people, that they've
Mhm.
made bad mistakes, but they're not defined by those mistakes. I think like so in California at one point we touted 193,000 people in prison. And that was
Mhm.
for a several year period, and there's been legislative and federal push to reduce that number, and now we're somewhere around between 98 and 102,000 people. It's still a lot. That's a lot of people. But I say all that to say that what this means is that almost everybody in the state of California knows someone or knows someone who knows someone or has a loved one who's
Yeah.
in prison. So talk to those people. Talk to them, ask them about their experience. Don't shame them. Don't tell them how disappointed you are in them, but just
Mhm.
communicate with them, whether through pen pal or through a phone call or a visit. Just
Mhm.
realize the humanity in the people that are inside, and ask them what you can do to support. They're not going to ask you for much, because most people in prison try to be as self-sufficient as possible,
Mhm.
because we feel like we're a burden on our loved ones.
Mhm.
But what they'll probably say is just continue to communicate with me. Giving them that avenue outside helps them see that there's something beyond the fences and walls. um, it's like you said, the prison system does do a great job at teaching people that they are not worth anything and teaching people to underestimate their own value. So help them estimate their value appropriately.
Mhm.
Support them through communication, through just the idea of acknowledging their humanity.
Okay. Okay.
That's one of the things we're dealing with right now. California prisons just went on a new lockdown, supposed to be 15 days,
Mhm.
because of Omicron and the spread of that. I know that people inside are hurting to participate in the programs they once had. Um,
Mhm.
I think that programs outside community-based organizations would be wise and be the most supportive they possibly could be by establishing written curriculums and engaging with your
Mhm.
participants while you're out here. I think people inside are just striving for connection and COVID has completely limited that. I know that people are not permitted to go into the prison system. They're saying for 15 days, but last time it was supposed to be 15 days and it went 8 months. So we don't, the prison sets up enough hurdles already. The prisons do enough hurdles to get inside and support people inside. And COVID has only made that harder. But luckily, I work with a lot of different CBOs in different fields that I work in, and CBO being community-based organization. And the majority of CBOs have built out a written curriculum and are working actively with dozens to hundreds of people, varying on the size of the CBO. So these are good things to do. And I encourage more CBOs to do that.
That's awesome.
I think just if folks have the opportunity to go to our website, see what we're doing, if you have ideas for more that we could do, this is a community engagement. So let us know and we'll see what we could do. We'd love to hear your feedback on the things that we've done so far and any ideas that you have about what we could do in the future to reach more people. And thank you so much for this opportunity.
All right. So everybody who's been able to join us and hear me, we're having some connection issues, but we basically went ahead and just did the interview anyway. We figured it out. But if you guys have any issues or any questions or any ways you want to get involved with Graham, make sure to reach out to him. We have his contact information. And if you have any questions whatsoever, get them to me and I will make sure he gets them and we can discuss it again on a future podcast.
Great. Not at this point, but thank you so much.
All
I
right.
appreciate you, and it's great to talk to you through text, and hopefully we can do this again soon.
Yes. Thank you. You too.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Bye. All right, you guys. I don't know if anybody was able to hear any of me. I didn't lose my voice or anything. It's just technical difficulties. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed the show and worked around the technical difficulties pretty well, if I may say so myself. Yeah, you guys like, comment, share. Make sure to check out the links for their website for Locked In. They have a YouTube channel. They have an actual outside website as well that you can go visit anytime. But if I could say one thing for COVID, it's as hard as it is to get into activism, it is one of the few fields in which you can do it from your home and still have an amazing impact. So I encourage each of you to get involved, check out Locked In, and I'll hear from you guys soon. Bye.